after being away for half a year. My wife practically lunged at me the moment I returned, whispering that she desperately wanted a child, but the sudden eagerness only fueled my dark suspicions. Could she already be pregnant and is just looking for a backup to take the fall? After all, my job keeps me constantly on the road. If she were sneaking other men into our bed, I'd be the last person to find out. To prove her innocence or confirm my fears, I spent the next day rigging every room with hidden cameras. I fed her a lie about an urgent business trip calling me away again, then retreated to a prearranged rental unit nearby. I fired up my phone, monitoring her every move in real time. A full week crawled by, and my wife's behavior remained perfectly ordinary. But on the 8th day, she spent an eternity doing her makeup, before skipping out the door with a radiant glow. Convinced she was heading to a secret rendezvous, I hopped into my rental car, eyes glued to the building's exit. Moments later, her figure emerged from the lobby. I trailed her cautiously on foot, keeping my distance, only to find her destination was just the local market. A wave of relief washed over me. An hour passed, and she headed home carrying a heavy load of groceries. I returned to my car to continue the surveillance. On the monitor, she set the bags on the table and immediately dialed a number. "When will you be arriving?" 3 more hours, is that it? Oh, all right, I'll be waiting. Who was coming over? My heart shot straight into my throat. I endured 3 agonizing hours of suspense, until a sudden knock echoed through the speakers. My wife gleefully swung the door open, and a man strolled confidently into our living room. The moment I saw his face, my brain completely short-circuited. I recognized him instantly. He was my wife's superior at the office, Zhao Wuyan. Watching them laugh and dine together, acting as intimate as a long-married couple, I felt like my head was about to explode. Right now, I'm itching to storm in there and curb stomp these 2 cheaters. But cold logic tells me to hold back and wait for the perfect moment. I need to catch them red-handed with undeniable proof. By the time they finished dinner and retreated into the bedroom, my heart was a blazing furnace of pure, unadulterated rage. Yet my expression remained chillingly stoic. I actually started laughing, though the sound was laced with nothing but bitter irony. I never in a million years imagined this would be the outcome. I practically killed myself working to stack cash, just so she could finally have a place to call home. That $300,000 down payment, I suffered through hell and back to save that money. I finally secured the house. We tied the knot, and barely a single year into the marriage, she goes and pulls a stunt like this. Staring at the repulsive, filthy scene unfolding on my screen, my mouth slowly twisted into a dark, sinister grin. I exited the app, pulled out a burner SIM card, and dialed the police with steady fingers. I need to report an emergency. Forward Garden Apartments building, 6 room 502. I think a woman is being violently assaulted right now. I can hear her muffled screams of agony from the hallway. If you don't hurry, she might not survive the night. Please, you must keep my identity completely anonymous. I'm terrified the culprit will hunt me down for revenge. After cutting the line, I immediately rang a tabloid news hotline. I've got the lead of a lifetime for you. A major criminal case is unfolding at Forward Garden Building 6. Get your cameras down here immediately. Ignoring the reporter's frantic questions, I hung up and tossed the burner phone aside. I leaned back in the driver's seat and lit a cigarette. Liu Li, I'm throwing my own reputation into the gutter just to ruin you. Let's see how you like this game. I switched the surveillance feed back on, watching the betrayal play out. I began to critique the scene with cold detachment. He's not even that handsome, and his physique is a joke compared to mine. But I guess being a project manager gives him a little more leverage than I have. Liu Li, if this is all it took for you to trash our vows, then I must have been blind to ever love you. Before long, a fleet of police cruisers came swarming in. As the police cruisers swarmed the entrance, curious neighbors from every corner of the complex began to gather. Feeding on drama is just human nature. Shortly after the police stormed inside, I spotted that reporter with his camera tailing them right up. My grin widened with pure satisfaction. But as the laughter bubbled up, a few stray tears betrayed my eyes and rolled down. After about 30 grueling minutes, the cops escorted a fully dressed Liu Li and Zhao Wuyan into the cruiser. That sharp reporter stayed hidden in the crowd, snapping away. Meanwhile, the onlookers were busy posting the chaos to social media. I heard this was some kind of home invasion assault. That guy is absolute scum. Bullshit. Where did you even hear that load of garbage? Let me tell you the real tea. That woman lives right above me. Her husband is always away on business, and every time he's gone, I hear some serious commotion upstairs. She's clearly been sleeping around. I was waiting for the right moment to warn her poor husband. But now, man, his head is going to explode from rage. I'm certain these two are about to go viral. And by association, I'll get a taste of being a celebrity too. My objective has been perfectly executed. Now I just wait for the police to call the family for pickup. I'm dying to see the look on my wife's face when she finally sees me. Is this Mr. Chin speaking? A smirk danced on my lips. Yet I answered with a tone of perfect confusion. Yes, that's me. Can I help you with something? It's like this. We received a report. stating that your wife was being assaulted. But before the officer could finish his sentence, I cut him off with practiced desperation. Are you saying my wife was attacked? My wife is Liuli, tell me. Is she okay, officer? Sir, please. I need you to stay calm for a second. How can I be calm? What the hell happened to my wife? Having been interrupted twice already, the officer's voice grew stern and sharp. Sir, listen to me very carefully. Your wife was not assaulted. I exhaled a heavy theatrical sigh of relief and stammered. Thank God. Thank God for that. As long as my Liuli is safe, nothing else matters. She was cheating on you. According to our immediate findings, the encounter was entirely consensual. The officer's blunt, ill-timed revelation left me in a staged, prolonged silence. Long silence. I played the part of a man whose entire world had just crumbled. Mr. Chin, are you still with us? I know this is a bitter pill to swallow, but you need to stay composed. Please don't do anything reckless. My voice cracked thick with synthetic bitterness. I'm fine. It's just, this news is so sudden, so devastating. I just need a moment to process everything. By the way, you haven't notified my in-laws yet, have you? They're both in their 50s and their health is quite fragile. I'm afraid a shock like this might actually kill them. There was a heavy pause on the other end of the line before the officer spoke. I'm sorry. My partner already contacted the parents. They are currently en route to the station. A dark, subtle smirk tugged at the corner of my mouth. I feigned frantic desperation. I'm leaving right now. I'll be there as fast as I can. So, the moment the words left my lips, I ended the call. I tossed the phone aside carelessly and sprawled back onto the bed. Liu Li, I can't wait to see how you face your parents now. Your old man has a heart condition, doesn't he? Let's see if your filth finally sends him to the grave. After a cold, hollow laugh, I began to meticulously rehearse my performance. I needed the perfect mask to wear when I faced them. I waited until the clock struck midnight before finally gathering my things to head down to the station. The second I stepped out of the car, I donned a mask of frantic anxiety and charged into the precinct. Every step I took radiated a sense of tightly suppressed explosive fury. Liuli sat frozen in her chair, her eyes completely hollow. The very second our gazes locked, she hung her head in a fit of agonizing shame. After a brief tense exchange with the officer in charge, I paced slowly toward my unfaithful wife. I reached out and gently took her hand in mine. Liuli tried to flinch away, but I maintained a crushing, inescapable grip. I leaned in, whispering my interrogation. Tell me, honey, was my love just not enough for you? Liuli desperately avoided my eyes, offering nothing but a suffocating, guilty silence. Just as I prepared to dig deeper, my phone shattered the silence with a ring. Glancing at the screen, I turned back to Liuli and said coldly, It's your parents. They're calling. You don't have to be honest with me if you don't want to, but you better start crafting a lie for them. I stepped aside and clicked the accept button. What, Dad had another heart attack and she's sick? I'm at the station right now. I'll bring Liuli over to the hospital immediately. I spun around, glaring at the shell of a woman. What are you waiting for? Move. Eat. Your filth has already sent your father to the ER. As for us, we'll settle our score later. On the way there, I rolled down the window, letting the biting night air hit my face, before suddenly dropping the bomb on Liuli. Are you pregnant, isn't that it? Liuli stared blankly out the window, refusing to utter a word. I continued my cold assault. If you have any pathetic hope of saving this marriage, you will terminate that pregnancy immediately. There is zero chance that child belongs to me, and I'll be damned if I raise another man's mistake. Liuli remained a statue of silence. The weight of the scandal had clearly broken her spirit. Pulling into the city hospital, we found my mother-in-law outside the emergency room. Wang Xiuqin sat there trembling, with Liuli's eldest uncle by her side. I rushed over and knelt before her, my voice thick with feigned frantic concern. Mom, how's Dad? What are the doctors saying? Is his life in danger? Wang Xiuqin looked at me with bloodshot eyes, grabbing my hand with desperate strength as she sobbed. Xiaoqing, I am so sorry. It's our fault. We failed to raise our daughter right. We've brought such immense shame upon you. I am truly deeply sorry. Mom, let's put that aside and talk about it later. I assume Dad's surgical fees haven't been settled yet. I'll go take care of the hospital bill first. Wang Xiuqin gripped my hand with a desperate strength, her voice thick with overwhelming humiliation as she said, Xiaoqin, how could we possibly take another cent of your money? I patted her hand gently. Mom, you and Dad have always been good to me. I grew up as a lonely orphan, and it was you two who finally showed me what a family feels like. Even if my relationship with Liuli is completely severed, I would still step up to pay for this. I softly extricated my hand from my mother-in-law's grasp, turning on my heel to head toward the billing department. As my mother-in-law watched my retreating figure, her lips trembled as she tried to speak, but the words remained trapped in her throat. A crushing weight of guilt left her feeling utterly mortified. She marched over to where Liuli was standing. Liuli kept her head bowed low, uttering a fragile, timid plea. Mom, don't you dare call me Mom. I refuse to acknowledge a daughter as shameless and depraved as you. Wang Xiuqin's hand whipped through the air, delivering a stinging slap to Liu Li's face. Xiaoxian is such a wonderful, devoted man. And yet you went and committed such a revolting betrayal. You can figure out how to explain this mess yourself. Liu Li lunged for Wang Xiuqin's hand, sobbing hysterically. Mom, I'm so sorry. I swear I was possessed. I wasn't in my right mind. Please just find it in your heart to forgive me this once. Wang Xiuqin violently wrenched her hand away, refusing to even spare a glance at her daughter. She retreated to her seat, staring at the operating room doors with eyes full of dread. Once the transaction was complete, I began making my way back. The moment I stepped out of the elevator, I saw Liu Li standing there looking pathetic and entirely alone. A faint, chilling smile danced across the corners of my mouth. I strolled over to them, sitting beside my mother-in-law to offer some hollow comfort. Mom, stay strong. Relax. Dad is a fighter. He's going to pull through. The surgery costs are fully covered now. If there are more expenses down the road, I'll handle those as well. Wang Xiuqin was caught in a storm of shame and profound gratitude. Xiaoqin, we've truly failed you this time. After such a scandalous betrayal, even if you demand an immediate divorce from Xiaoli, we wouldn't have a single word of protest. We won't take a single penny from you, and we'll find a way to repay every cent of these medical bills. Mom, let's just get through this before we discuss the rest. At that moment, Liu Li hesitated, looking utterly conflicted. After a visible internal struggle, she slowly shuffled toward us. Without warning, she collapsed onto her knees, her voice cracking into a pathetic, hysterical sob. Hubby, I'm so incredibly sorry. I was wrong. Please just forgive me. Just this one time. I swear I was possessed. I wasn't in my right mind. I promise I'll never ever betray your trust again. I kept my face cold and stony as I tried to pull her up. This is a hospital, I muttered. Whatever drama you're starting, save it for when we get home. But Liu Li just clung to me, wailing like a child. My mother-in-law shot up from her seat and delivered a stinging slap across Liu Li's face. Get up. Have you no shame left to lose? We are in a public hospital, for God's sake. Liu Li stared at Wang Xiuqin in absolute shock. She had bankrolled on the idea that with her mother present, she could play the victim card and force me into forgiving her right then and there. Even a single insincere word of comfort would have given her a sliver of hope to cling to. But she never imagined her own mother would refuse to back her up. I let a flash of pure disdain flicker in my smile. I knew exactly what kind of sick games she was trying to play in that head of hers. To me, these were nothing more than amateurish tricks. I'm a man who's already tossed my own reputation into the gutter. Why would I care about a few judgmental stares from strangers? After keeping watch through the grueling night, my father-in-law was finally wheeled out of the operating room. Back in the ward, he remained unconscious. I turned to the exhausted family and spoke. Mom, uncle, you two aren't as young as you used to be. Go get some rest. I'll take the first shift here. Absolutely not. Xiaohuan, you've been through hell too. You need to go home and get some sleep. Besides, you and Liu Li need to settle things once and for all. Seeing my mother-in-law's stubborn persistence, I stopped pushing back and relented. After heading downstairs to grab a few breakfast sets, I escorted Liu Li away from the hospital. The moment we stepped through the front door, Liu Li didn't even bother to change her shoes. She marched straight to me and collapsed onto her knees. Hubby, I was so wrong. I'll never ever do it again. A flash of pure loathing flickered in my eyes. Yet I made no move to help her up. I'm genuinely curious. Was I not good enough to you? What possessed you to betray me like this? Was it really just because you couldn't handle being lonely? Hubby, I've truly learned my lesson, Uck. I swear on my life I'll never... And why should I believe another one of your hollow promises? Liulia remained silent. But I had already deduced that with my frequent absences. A woman with her seductive looks would always be swarmed by filthy buzzing flies. Liuli completely broke down, sobbing hysterically, as she lunged forward to cling to my legs. Hubby, please, I'm begging for one last chance. I'll do anything to make up for this sin. I'll quit my job first thing tomorrow morning and stay home as a full-time housewife. Hubby, please just hit me. Maybe if you hurt me, your heart will finally find some peace. I shoved Liu Li back, staring down at her with cold detachment. I raised my hand high, swinging it down with what looked like lethal force. Liu Li squeezed her eyes shut, not even flinching. But as my palm reached its target, there was no violent crack of skin. At the last second, I drained my strength and turned it into a caress. I tenderly stroked her cheek with a deceptive warmth and said, "How could I ever bring myself to strike you? I simply don't have the heart for it." Overwhelmed by relief, Liu Li lunged to embrace me again. Hubby, you'll forgive me, right? Please say you will. Don't divorce me. Let's just live a quiet, stable life from now on. That depends entirely on your performance. If I were to just let you off the hook this easily, I'd never be able to live with myself. Overjoyed by the glimmer of hope, Liu Li vowed frantically. I'll prove myself to you, I swear. I promise you're going to see a completely different woman. I swear I absolutely won't let you down. Even though I hadn't explicitly voiced my forgiveness, the fact that I hadn't aggressively demanded a divorce gave her a glimmer of hope to cling to. I carried Liu Li toward the bedroom, but as my eyes landed on that bed, I came to a dead halt. Liu Li was sharp. She knew that piece of furniture was triggering revolting memories. She scrambled out of my arms immediately and said, "Hubby, don't look at it. I'm going to have this bed hauled away right now." I stared at her without uttering a single word. Turning my back to head out onto the balcony, Liu Li watched my retreating figure, but maintained a respectful distance. She understood that right now I needed solitude. Once she regained her composure, Liu Li began making frantic phone calls, hiring movers to clear out the tainted items, and ordering brand new furniture to be delivered immediately. Naturally, she paid for all of this out of her own pocket. By the time noon rolled around, every single eyesore in that house had been replaced, especially that wretched bed. Liu Li approached me tentatively, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Hubby, lunch is ready, you eat?" I gave a cold, expressionless nod and strode toward the dining table after finishing the meal in silence. We packed some food and headed to the hospital to see her parents. Arriving at the ward, I gave a polite knock before pushing the door open. I began laying out the dishes on the bedside table. Wang Xiuqin's brow furrowed. "Where is that wretched girl?" I offered a calm explanation. "Liu Li is waiting out in the hallway. She's terrified that seeing her might trigger another attack for Dad, so she decided to stay outside." Wang Xiuqin spat out a curse. If she actually cared about that, she wouldn't have been so shameless. I simply maintained a polite smile, as if her words didn't affect me in the slightest. While they were busy eating, I took my place by the bedside to keep watch. I'm not sure if it was just a trick of the light, but I could have sworn my father-in-law's finger twitched. Before I could even blink, I saw that his eyes were wide open. I rushed to his side and asked urgently, "Dad, you're awake? Are you feeling any pain or discomfort?" Hearing my voice, my mother-in-law and eldest uncle instantly dropped their chopsticks and swarmed the bed. Liu Li remained stationed just outside the door, peeking in, watching him from a distance, without the courage to step inside. Wang Xiuqin stepped forward and asked, "Old Liu, talk to me. How are you feeling, old? Are you in any distress?" Though Liu Hua was still visibly frail, he maintained a cold, rigid expression as he scanned the faces surrounding him. When he failed to spot the person he was looking for, he spoke with a voice trembling with fury. "Unbelievable, but the daughter I raised for decades isn't even half as reliable as my son-in-law. I'm lying here on my deathbed, and she doesn't even have the decency to show her face. I quickly stepped in to clarify. "Dad, it's not like that. She's right outside the door. She was just terrified that seeing her would trigger another relapse, so she didn't dare set foot in the room." Liu Hua's voice was heavy and commanding as he said, "Get her in here, now." I exchanged a quick look with Wang Xiuqin before walking out to the hallway and dragging a reluctant Liu Li inside, gazing at her father's stern, unforgiving face. Liu Li lowered her head in a mix of pure shame and terror. In a voice barely above a whisper, she squeaked, "Dad, don't you dare call me Dad. I have no daughter as shameless and disgraceful as you." Liu Li collapsed onto the floor with a heavy thud, wailing hysterically as she pleaded, "Dad, I was wrong. I truly deeply realized my mistake. I have to admit I was starting to admire her. Just look at how practiced and fluid that kneeling motion was." Liu Hua struggled to sit up in bed, but his body was simply too weak to obey. He fixed his gaze on Liu Li and then turned to me. "Xiaoqin, I know you're harboring a mountain of resentment. I want you to slap her across the face for me." I stared at Liu Hua in a complete daze, momentarily stripped of any words to respond. I truly hungered to strike her down, but a flicker of doubt remained. Could this be some kind of elaborate trap? Seeing my hesitation and lack of movement, Liu Hua pushed even further. "What are you waiting for? Are you even a man if you can't punish a woman like her? With the ultimatum laid bare like that?" I cast my indecision aside. I hoisted my hand and unleashed a brutal slap across Liu Li's face. The stinging crack of the blow echoed through the ward for an eternity. Only then did the tension in Liu Hua's expression finally ease. The old man was deliberately forcing me to strike his own daughter. He wanted me to vent every ounce of my pent-up resentment. He knew that only by doing this could this shattered marriage ever be salvaged. Despite the sheer force of the blow that rattled her skull, Liu Li actually looked relieved, because the fact that I had finally struck her meant she still stood a chance at earning my forgiveness. Again, oh, I whipped my hand back, lashing her other cheek. Again, but this time I abruptly pulled my punch. Staring at Liu Li's rapidly swelling bruised cheeks, I finally spoke up to plead for mercy. "Dad, that's enough. The point has been made. Please just let your anger go." Liu Hua turned his gaze toward the window and sighed. "Since you're the one asking for mercy, then so be it. Take her away. Get out of my sight. I can't bear to look at her right now. As for the fate of you two, whether you choose divorce or to keep this marriage alive, the decision is entirely yours to make. We won't utter a single word of complaint." I opened my mouth to speak, but ultimately I remained silent. "Dad, just focus on resting. Call me if you need anything." With that, I led Liu Li out of the hospital room. Liu Li trailed behind me, submissive and docile as a frightened child. I glanced back at her inflamed, swollen face, reaching out to gently stroke her skin. Does it still hurt? With eyes brimming with tears, Luli shook her head frantically. Follow me. I'll help you take care of those bruises. Afterward, I took Luli to see a doctor to treat her injuries. Staring at her haggard and exhausted face, I remarked, since we're already here, you might as well get a full physical exam. Luli gazed at me, realizing that any protest would be utterly futile. She complied with my every demand, undergoing a comprehensive battery of tests. She was desperate to use cold facts to prove she wasn't pregnant. When the results finally came in, I skimmed through them with total indifference, before tossing the papers to her. Let's go, I said. We're heading home. A faint, hopeful smile played on Luli's lips. As she followed me, her heart filled with a twisted joy. Back then, whenever we walked together, we were either side by side or she'd lead the way. Now she trailed several paces behind me. The power dynamic in this household had shifted forever. The moment we stepped inside, I sat on the sofa to draft my resignation letter. This job demanded constant business trips, keeping me away from home far too often. How could I fix our marriage without being present? Resigning was a calculated necessity. Luli immediately started scrubbing the house, too terrified to let herself sit idle for even a second. She was working overtime to prove her worth. Yet she didn't dare breathe a word to me, mortified by the thought of sparking my legendary temper. Truthfully, if Luli had the guts to demand a divorce now, my grandmaster plan would fall apart instantly. But she lacked the courage to face the vitriol of her relatives. She was desperate to stay married. I was the last high-value man she could ever hope to claim. She had just finished scrolling through the news and socials. She's basically become a local celebrity in Nanchang for all the wrong reasons. The moral condemnation she's facing is enough to bury her alive. Now she can only cower in my shadow, gasping for air. I watched Liuli bustling about, a cold mocking smirk tugging at my lips, treating her like nothing more than a lowly maid. I commanded, go fetch me a cup of tea. Liuli instantly dropped her cleaning supplies, scurrying off to obey my order. At this point, her only goal was to keep me appeased, so that I wouldn't pull the trigger on a divorce. A moment later, she set the tea on the side table, her eyes darting toward the text on my laptop screen. She ventured a question, hubby te. Are you actually quitting your job, Yig? I shot back with a sneer, if I don't, how will I be home for your next affair? Even though it was a stinging insult, Liu Li was secretly ecstatic inside. She's convinced that I've already forgiven her. Otherwise, I wouldn't have phrased it that way. Hubby, what do you want for dinner tonight? No tip. I'll cook whatever you crave. Whatever. After finishing the resignation letter, I hit the send button without hesitation. Moments later, my boss rang me up. Xiaoqin, listen. I saw the scandalous headlines about your situation. But even so, there's really no need for you to resign. I can give you a few days of leave to sort out the divorce and legalities. I glanced toward the kitchen and replied coolly, I appreciate the offer, but I have zero intention of getting a divorce. The silence on the other end was deafening. He finally sputtered in pure disbelief. What on earth are you thinking? With your status, it's not like you're desperate for women. Plus, you're still young. Can't you show a little more backbone and self-respect? I have my own reasons. And besides, she was my first love. I just can't let her go. Let's leave it at that. Just approve my resignation, and please respect my choice. We'll talk later if there's a chance. I hung up immediately after finishing my piece. In that very instant, I noticed the sound of chopping in the kitchen became noticeably lighter. I said those words specifically for her ears. Then I hopped online to check the local buzz. The front page was still plastered with last night's drama. I scrolled down to the comment section. After a quick scan through the feed, I saw nothing but a tsunami of hate directed at her. Satisfied, I knew my plan was working. I exited the app with a stony expression, locked my phone, and closed my eyes to sink into deep thought. Now that the old job is history, it's time to hunt for a brand new role. Otherwise, the 100,000 I have left won't last very long. However, this next job needs to be close to home. Dinner's ready. After eating, I drove back to the hospital to deliver some food. This time I left Liu Li behind. It was time to give her some suffocating alone time. Through the hidden camera, I saw Liu Li huddling on the sofa, the dim glow of her phone illuminating her face. Clearly, she was scrolling through something. Suddenly, she clutched her head and began to wail hysterically. I knew she was reading the online comments and watching the viral videos, breaking down over a few insults. Please, the real nightmare hasn't even begun yet. I let out a chilling sneer, locked my phone, and focused on the road ahead as I approached the hospital. I walked into the ward carrying the dinner containers. Dad, Mom, time to eat. Lu Hua looked up at me and said, Shuqin, step outside for a moment. I need to have a private word with Xiaoqin. Wang Shuqin froze for a second. Once she processed his request, she set the food down and nodded. All right then. You two have your talk. I won't disturb you. With that, she exited the room. Lu Hua struggled to prop himself up in bed. Xiaoqin, tell me honestly, what are you thinking? Are you going to go through with the divorce? I knew exactly what he was doing. He was testing the waters. So I put on my best performance of a conflicted soul and replied, Dad, to be perfectly honest, I have no idea what to do anymore. Liu Li was my first love. I can't just cast her aside. But after what she did, I find it impossible to truly forgive her. I'm being torn apart by my own emotions right now. Dad, please, give me some guidance. If this continues, I feel like I'm going to have a total mental breakdown. Lu Hua patted my shoulder with a heavy sigh. Xiaoqin, we are the ones who have truly failed you. It's my fault for not raising her with a moral compass, leading her to bring such absolute disgrace upon our family. If you really don't want to end this marriage, I will discipline her personally. I'll make sure she stays faithful and devoted to you. If she ever dares to cross that line again, you won't even have to lift a finger. I'll break her legs myself. I gazed at Liu Hua with feigned emotion, knowing my father-in-law wasn't just making empty threats. If Liu Li actually dared to stray again, he would genuinely disown and destroy her. He let out a heavy, weary sigh. Liu Hua asked with a voice thick with guilt, Xiaoqin, I assume the news has spread everywhere by now. Has your career been affected by this scandal? I shrugged it off with the casual, it's nothing. I've been planning to switch careers anyway. With my background and experience, I can make a killing no matter what I do. Liu Hua sighed again. I'm old and useless, I can't help much. But if there's ever anything you need from me, I won't hesitate for a second. He already considered me a part of the family. But my sacrificial behavior today had moved him to tears. In his heart, my status now completely surpassed his own daughter's. Dad just focused on recovering and getting healthy. I'll handle every single detail of this mess. You know I grew up as a lonely orphan. And over this past year, I've come to view you and Mom as my true parents. The reason I haven't divorced Liu Li yet is partly because I still harbor feelings for her, but mostly because I can't bear to lose you too. Because you're the only ones who've ever made me feel like I belong. After delivering my lines, I didn't even bother looking back at Liu Hua's expression. I didn't need to. I knew he was drowning in guilt and overwhelmed with gratitude. He was likely cursing Liu Li's very existence in his mind. I stepped out of the ward and escorted my mother-in-law Wang Xiuqin back inside. After keeping them company through dinner, I packed up the containers to leave, but as I reached the door, I turned back and said, Mom, I'll stay and watch over Dad tonight. You should head home and get some proper sleep. A short while later, I drove Wang Xiuqin back to the apartment complex. I didn't even bother getting out of the car. I simply said, Mom, Liu Li is inside. Just head up on your own. I need to get back to the hospital immediately. Wang Xiuqin sighed heavily as she watched me drive off into the distance. Once a rift like this forms in a heart, it's nearly impossible to heal. She knew her daughter had brought this disaster upon herself. Why even try to interfere, she thought. We owe him too much now. Whatever Xiaoqin decides to do, we must accept it. I didn't head straight back to the ward. Instead, I found a secluded parking spot and killed the engine. I pulled out my phone to check the surveillance feed. The second I opened the app, I witnessed a scene that was almost too perfect. Liu Li, what is there even left to say? Just look at the absolute wreckage you've caused. Xiaoqin is such a rare golden-hearted man, and yet you still weren't satisfied. You had to go and throw it all away for some cheap thrill. Did you ever stop to consider his feelings? Did you ever think about how this would crush me and your father? By doing this, you didn't just spit on Xiaoqin's dignity. You snapped your own parents' spines and left us for dead. I can already hear the whispers. I can hear the neighbors back in the village gossiping about me and your poor father. They'll point and say, there go the people who raised that depraved, wild, unfaithful girl. They produced a failure like her. It is so utterly humiliating. Mom, please stop. Don't say any more. I'm sorry, I truly am. I'll never ever do it again. Liu Li clutched her head and wailed in agony, yes. That's it. Scold her. Isolate her. Incinerate her soul with her own shame. Only when she's drowning in this guilt will she feel true pain. There was no need to watch any further. I tucked my phone away and finally drove back toward the hospital. I arrived at the lobby and stepped into the elevator. Just as I pressed the floor button and the doors began to slide shut, a slender hand reached in to trigger the sensor. Wait, please hold the door. As a soft, melodious female voice rang out, a stunningly sweet woman suddenly appeared before me. She looked to be in her early 20s. I merely spared her a fleeting, indifferent glance. Could you please press 8 for me? Thanks. Even though she was heading to the same floor. I didn't think much of the coincidence. Upon reaching the 8th floor, I stepped out of the elevator without a word. Aside from that initial glance, I hadn't given the woman a single thought. Returning to the ward, I noticed my father-in-law was still wide awake. Dad, I called out. Why haven't you tried to get some rest yet? I pulled up a stool and took a seat by his bedside. I can't seem to drift off, he sighed. Xiaoqin, I'm perfectly fine here. Go home and get some sleep yourself. I picked up a piece of fruit, peeling it meticulously as I replied. I can't do that. If I head back now, Mom will just cause a fuss and insist on coming back here. But I just need to be alone for a while. I looked up and caught his eye. Stop dwelling on those miserable thoughts. You really need to get some shut-eye. I won't be able to rest until you do. I've been awake for over 24 hours straight. Do me a favor and have some mercy on me. Just go to sleep. Seeing him finally settle back into the pillows, I reached over to tuck him in securely, before returning to the fruit in my hands. A few moments later, the fruit had been carved into a delicate rose. Staring at the edible masterpiece, I let out a soft, bitter chuckle, before tossing it straight into the trash can. Love is a luxury I've discarded. I knew my father-in-law was still awake listening. About an hour dragged by, and sleep remained elusive for me. That was to be expected, though. No matter who you are, it's impossible to remain tranquil after a betrayal like this, even for someone as calculated and rational as me. Slipping out of the room, I made my way to a secluded hospital balcony, phone in hand. I sparked a cigarette, the smoke curling into the night. The pitch-black canvas of the night perfectly mirrored the void within my heart. A faint reflection revealed my gaze sharp as a honed blade. That piercing sword-like stare seemed capable of dealing a lethal blow to anyone it struck. Hey, this is a hospital. It's a public space. So put that cigarette out. A woman's voice shattered the silence. I turned my head to glance at her. The icy frost in my eyes not yet dissipated. The girl flinched, visibly shaken by my death stare. However, she didn't back down. Instead, she stood her ground and glared back with determination. Relax. There's no one else around anyway. I'll leave as soon as I'm finished. Am I a ghost then? I'm standing right here. Extinguish that smoke immediately. Faced with her stubborn persistence, I sighed in resignation and put it out. Back in the ward, I checked on my sleeping father-in-law, before collapsing back onto my chair to chase some sleep. Early the next morning, my mother-in-law arrived to take over the shift. She was practically forceful as she insisted I head home. Once I returned to the apartment, I crashed onto the sofa to finish my interrupted rest, lost in a hazy half-conscious state. The sound of the door opening jolted me awake. I opened my eyes to see Liuli. Her eyes were bloodshot and puffy from crying. I knew she'd just endured another verbal beatdown at the hospital. She's lucky her father isn't allowed to move much yet. Otherwise, her face would be covered in fresh red handprints. Liuli looked at me, her expression brimming with apology. I'm so sorry. Hubby, did I wake you up, Blay? What time is it? Liuli scrambled to check her phone. It's 11:30. Go make lunch. And when you're done, go quit that job of yours. The moment the words left my mouth, I closed my eyes again, feigning sleep. Liuli bit her lip until it turned white. This cold, indifferent treatment was agonizing for her. In the past, I would have rushed to comfort her, treating her like a precious queen. Now, however, I treat her with total apathy. The contrast is absolutely jarring for her, but she has no choice but to endure it. She clings to the delusion that if she just suffers through this, things will improve. Liuli is drowning in a sea of regret. She loathes her past self for being so incredibly naive, cursing the moment she surrendered to that forbidden temptation. But if regret actually had the power to change things, people wouldn't be praying for a miracle cure for their past mistakes. The sins you've committed don't simply vanish through remorse, unless you can literally turn back the hands of time. That wound will remain a permanent throbbing scar. Tears began to stream down her face in a silent, agonizing flow. Liuli shuffled into the kitchen like a hollow mannequin. Humans are pathetic. They always yearn for the good old days. Yet they were completely blind to that beauty when they actually had it. I couldn't care less about her internal torment. Forgiveness is God's business. My only job is to arrange the meeting between them. Listening to the rhythmic sound of the knife in the kitchen, I found that sleep had completely eluded me. Instead, I flicked on the television, aimlessly channel surfing through mindless dramas, just to kill the dragging hours. Over an hour later, after a mechanical lunch, I grabbed the food containers and prepared to head out. Before leaving, I fixed my gaze on Liuli. I just stared at her with a terrifyingly calm expression. Not a single word of warning or advice. Liuli withered under my silent scrutiny, visibly unsettled. Her body instinctively recoiled in an unnatural shrink. She was desperately hoping I would at least yell or threaten her, but I offered nothing as I turned to walk away. Liuli collapsed onto the sofa, looking completely defeated. She finally realized that the past was a closed book. Now her only pathetic hope is that I might offer just 1/3 of the love. I used to shower upon her. That would be enough to satisfy her now. My father-in-law's discharge was approaching, so I drove to the hospital. Once the elevator doors hissed open, I stepped straight into the crowded car. The lack of proper rest was finally catching up to me. Hunched over that hospital chair last night, sleep had been a physical impossibility. Even though I had laid down for a bit back at home, I never truly drifted off into unconsciousness. My mind felt hazy, caught in a trance-like exhaustion. When the elevator reached the floor, I pushed my way through the sea of people. I suppressed a yawn as I trudged toward the ward. As I rounded the corner of the corridor, I felt myself collide head-on with someone. I glanced down to see who it was, only to realize the girl I'd just knocked over was the same one from last night. I reached out and said, "My bad. I didn't see you there." The girl glared at me with pure irritation. "You again?" Knowing I was at fault, I gave a contrite smile. The girl spared a glance at my extended hand but refused to take it, choosing instead to scramble up on her own. She brushed the dust off her clothes and snapped, "What is wrong with you? Watch where you're going next time." Arriving at the ward, My mother-in-law hurried over to take the food from my hands. She fussed over me saying, Xiaoqin, you really shouldn't have delivered this yourself. You didn't get a wink of sleep last night. You should have just made her bring it over. It's fine, Mom. As for Liuli, I sent her to finalize her resignation. My mother-in-law fell silent instantly. After a stern lecture from the eldest uncle, she had learned exactly which topics were safe and which ones were strictly off limits. The moment my father-in-law saw me, a smile lit up his face. Xiaoqin, I'm feeling much stronger. I'll likely be discharged in just a few days. You don't need to visit every single day. Focus on your rest. If food needs to be delivered, let her handle it. I hear you, Dad. It's just that she was tied up with things today. Once she settles everything on her end, I'll have her take over the deliveries. Sitting back in my car, I sparked a cigarette. For a moment, I felt completely adrift. That house, the very site of my ultimate humiliation. I truly had no desire to return to it. When I finally stepped inside the apartment, Liuli hadn't returned yet. Before long, the sound of my own light snoring filled the room. This was the first real sleep I'd had since that fateful night. It wasn't until late afternoon that Liuli woke me up. Hubby, dinner is served. I blinked my eyes open, still lost in a groggy haze. I cast a sideways glance at Liuli and muttered, Stop crying every single damn day. Just look at how bloodshot and swollen your eyes are. Go eat by yourself. Liuli's mouth hung open, struggling for words. But not a single syllable came out. She could only turn away and shuffle out of the bedroom. After setting the table, she approached me tentatively and said, Hubby, I have something important to show you. Liuli handed me her phone, pointing to a report stating that he had been officially investigated. It looked like he'd be rotting behind bars for a few years. I snatched the device and skimmed the news, my eyebrows arching in genuine surprise. Zhao Wuyan was actually taken down, and so incredibly fast. Tossing the phone aside, I looked up, locking eyes with Liuli. Did you report him? She didn't utter a word, simply giving a slow, deliberate nod. My estimation of her ruthlessness ticked up a notch. This woman's methods were surprisingly efficient. Hearing my icy snort, Liuli became even more terrified of speaking. She knew that when it came to anything involving Zhao Wuyan, she had absolutely zero right to an opinion. Some things are meant to be done in silence. One shouldn't expect a reward for cleaning up their own mess. So what's your grand plan now? I interrogated her. I won't leave the house anymore. I'll stay right here. I'll devote myself to cleaning and cooking for you. Liuli finished her vow, peering at me with eyes full of anxiety. I could also stay home and raise a child for us. I set my chopsticks down, igniting a cigarette with a flick of my thumb. Let's just leave it at that. As for a child, put that thought on ice for now. A flicker of crushing disappointment crossed her face. But she wasn't stupid. She knew the bridge between us was still burned to a crisp. Her desperate ploy to use a baby to fix this home would have to wait. Once we finished the meal, I drove Liuli straight back to the hospital. I sent her up to assist her parents with their things. While I handled the final discharge paperwork, everything was messy and incomplete. I had just finished settling the expenses when I spun around and slammed right into someone. The placement of my hand, however, was beyond awkward. Before the girl could even process what happened, I scrambled a step back to create distance. I couldn't shake the feeling that she looked familiar, yet I couldn't quite place her face. The girl clutched her chest and recoiled in shock. Not you again, The moment she spoke, it all came flooding back to me. This was the same girl I had nearly plowed over a few days ago. I offered a hasty apology. I'm so sorry. Truly, I'm sorry. I didn't realize anyone was behind me. You appeared so suddenly, and I simply didn't react in time. Her face flushed a deep crimson. Though whether it was fury at my accidental touch, or the embarrassment of skipping the queue, I couldn't tell. She had originally intended to ask the nurse a quick question. But who could have predicted this total disaster? The girl struggled with her burning embarrassment for a moment, hurling a lethal savage glare in my direction, before spinning around and bolting away. I watched her retreating figure with a look of confusion. Since she wasn't demanding an explanation, I wasn't about to chase her down, just to keep apologizing. I simply turned around and headed back to the car. When Liuli walked out of the building, she caught the exact tail end of me apologizing to that girl. Because she was still quite a distance away, she couldn't hear a single word of our exchange. She only saw my lips moving in conversation. In that fleeting instant, a sharp pang of insecurity pierced her heart. She realized she had grown far too complacent, and had completely overlooked my best qualities. Between my solid good looks and my polished manners, it was impossible for me to stay single for long. If we divorced, I could thrive and find someone new. But if she ended up alone, she would be nothing but a target for public scorn. Faced with that grim reality, Liuli became even more determined never to let go. She had to find a way to heal the rift in my heart. Staying by my side was her only path to survival. Without the safety of this protective umbrella, she'd be dragged into the scorching light of public judgment. Her mother cast a final weary glance at her daughter. She had utterly run out of things to say to her. She had already exhausted every insult and dealt every blow possible. She was officially done interfering. content to let her fend for herself. Perhaps that was for the best. Dad, Mom, why don't you stay at our place for a few days? My father-in-law waved his hand dismissively and said, Xiaoqin, we won't go back there and cause you any more trouble. Just take us back to our old house. It's been empty for days now, and we can't keep bothering your eldest uncle to look after the pigs and chickens on our behalf. Seeing how firm he was on the matter, I didn't push the issue any further. I steered the car out of the city limits, heading straight toward their rural hometown. Liu Li sat frozen in the passenger seat, staring blankly out the window as a flicker of pure terror flashed in her eyes. If there was one thing she dreaded most right now, it was definitely returning to the village. She could already visualize the judgmental glares from relatives and the poisonous stares of the neighbors. Liu Li turned her head toward me, her eyes brimming with silent desperation. She was begging me not to linger there for long. She was genuinely, utterly petrified. Regarding Liu Li's pleading gaze, I didn't simply ignore it this time. I knew that pushing someone too far could backfire. Even a cornered rabbit will eventually bite. After navigating a stretch of bumpy, pothole-ridden country road, a small village finally materialized before us. This was the place Liu Li's parents called home, Shenjia Village. Most of the residents here shared the Shen surname, meaning almost everyone was tied by blood or marriage. The moment I parked the car, a swarm of rowdy neighborhood kids surrounded us. I hopped out and handed out some candy, finally managing to shoo the little brats away. Hey, big brother, I heard my mommy say. That sister Liu Li cheated on her husband. Hey, what does cheated actually mean, see? The little brat asked, tugging persistently at the corner of my jacket. My expression darkened instantly, but I still crouched down to his level and spoke. Listen here, kid. Why are you sticking your nose into grown-up business? Keep asking questions, and see if I don't snatch every single piece of that candy back. No way, big brother. You can't be a sore loser. It's already mine, so you aren't allowed to take it back. The kid frantically stuffed the sweets into his mouth and bolted. Since the car window was still rolled down, every word that child uttered hit Liu Li with brutal, crystal-clear precision. That innocent voice made her so sick with shame she couldn't lift her head. She curled into a ball in the passenger seat, trembling uncontrollably. Oh, so now you finally know the meaning of shame. My father-in-law barked at her with pure disgust. Liu Li lacked even the basic courage to offer a rebuttal. Just then, I yanked open the car door and said, Come on, Dad. Let me help you out of the car. Watch your head. Once I had helped the old couple onto the ground, I walked over to the passenger side, tapped on the glass, and commanded, Go cook. Your parents haven't even had breakfast yet. Liu Li shook her head frantically, staring at me with eyes full of desperate pleading. She wanted to vanish from this place more than anything in the world. What, you really expect your mother to cook for herself? Forced by my cold logic, Liu Li stepped out and trudged inside, bolting straight into the kitchen and refusing to come out. I glanced down at the thick layer of dust coating the floor, grabbed a worn-out broom, and began to sweep. My mother-in-law quickly snatched the handle from my grip. Xiaoqin, stop right there. Just leave it be. I'll clean it up as soon as I have a free moment. Exactly, Xiaoqin. Don't bother yourself with this. This is just raw concrete. It won't look any better no matter how much you scrub. It's not like it's polished tile. No matter how hard you sweep, the dust will always find a way back. In fact, it's better not to sweep at all. My father-in-law echoed from the side, agreeing. That simply won't do, I insisted. Let me just give it a quick pass, without waiting for another protest. I ignored their pleas and began to sweep. I claimed it was just a casual cleanup, but I made sure every corner was spotless. While I was busy tidying up the place, the news of the couple's return spread like wildfire through the village. Close relatives swarmed the house to pay their respects, mixed with local gossips who were just there for the drama. A massive crowd gathered around the table sipping tea and chatting. Naturally, they avoided the scandalous elephant in the room. Yet the way they kept glancing at me felt increasingly heavy and bizarre. Suddenly, the eldest aunt broke the ice to test me. Xiaoqin, tell us, what are your actual intentions? Auntie, please don't dig any further. Just let me keep a shred of my dignity. Just then, a pack of kids burst in chasing a wailing boy. The sobbing brat was the same one who'd pestered me earlier. He wailed through his hiccups and tears. Mom's sister Liu Li hit me. Auntie's heart broke as she touched the red welt on his cheek. Xiaobao, how on earth did you provoke her? I just asked her what cheating meant, and she went ballistic. She slapped me right across the face. It hurt so bad. Auntie looked up to see my in-laws' expressions, along with mine turning stone cold and grim. She scrambled to apologize immediately. Children say the darndest things. He didn't mean anything by it. Please don't take it to heart. I gripped my teacup tightly, remaining deathly silent throughout the exchange. Instead, my father-in-law gave the table a sharp, heavy thud. Sister, perhaps it's best if everyone heads home now. My health is still quite fragile. I'll come visit you all once I've recovered. The eviction notice had been served, and truthfully, it was long overdue. Once the floodgates of gossip were forced open, this mob's wagging tongues would become unstoppable. God knows what vile insults would have slipped out next. The rest of the crowd stood up in unison, muttering, Alright, we'll be taking our leave then. Rest up and we'll catch you another day. Liu Li only emerged with the food once the last of the guests had vanished. In reality, she had finished preparing the meal ages ago. But because of the judgmental crowd outside, she chose to cower in the shadows, rather than face their scrutiny. The moment my father-in-law saw her, his face contorted with rage. He slammed the table, unleashing a furious tirade. Oh, so now you've got an attitude too. After committing such a shameless, disgraceful act, you actually have the audacity to strike a child? Xiao Bao is just a young boy. If your blow had caused him permanent damage, your uncle would have flayed you alive. Liu Li buried her head like an ostrich, too terrified to speak. I stood by and absorbed the tension for a moment, and once I felt it had reached its peak, I intervened. Dad, take it easy. Just breathe. I'll take her off your hands and leave right now. Revenge is a dish best served in slow, agonizing bites. If I push Liu Li into a corner too quickly, she might just snap and run away. If she disappears and cuts ties now, it would ruin everything I've built. My upcoming endgame relies on her parents acting as my messengers, only by taking it slow. Can I ensure her total mental collapse? Being overly aggressive now would only lead to a counterproductive disaster. Xiaoqin, since you're already here, at least have a proper meal before you hit the road. It won't make a difference if you stay a little longer. My father-in-law turned to me with a sudden gentle tone. The way he treated me compared to the vitriol he spat at Liu Li was a complete 180-degree reversal. This jarring contrast made Liu Li's heart ache with even more misery. I weighed my options for a second and slowly sat back down. All right then, I said. I'll stay for a quick bite. But Dad, don't try to keep me here past that. Honestly, I don't feel very comfortable staying. I shot Liu Li a sharp look, signaling for her to make herself scarce. She shot me a glance filled with pathetic gratitude, before scurrying into the kitchen to grab the utensils. She didn't even dare to sit at the table with us. During the meal, my father-in-law insisted on having a drink. No matter how hard I tried to talk him out of it, he wouldn't budge. Ultimately, I had no choice but to let him have a single sip. After finishing the meal, I stood up to bid my in-laws farewell. I'm taking Liu Li back now. Call me immediately if you need anything at all. Liu Li practically bolted to the car, desperate to escape. She felt that if she stayed in this place a moment longer, she would suffer a complete mental breakdown, seeing Liu Li's pathetic state. My father-in-law's expression darkened once again. However, he restrained his fury, this time solely for my sake. Watching the car pull away, he let out a heavy, weary sigh and muttered, Xiaoqin is such a remarkable man. That girl doesn't deserve someone as noble as him. She's acted worse than a common beast. Forget it, old Shen, his wife whispered. Since Xiaoqin doesn't want a divorce, we should just respect his wishes. As for the poisonous gossip in the village, we'll just have to shield them as best we can. You mark my words. If she's still ungrateful enough to ever betray him like that again, I will personally beat her to death, just to salvage what's left of Xiaoqin's dignity. My father-in-law spat on the ground in disgust. Let's go inside. Meanwhile, behind the wheel, cruising down the road back to the city, I cast a visibly irritated glance at Liu Li. Stop your damn crying. Liu Li desperately wanted to stop the waterworks, but the memory of those judgmental stares at her parents' house kept her sobbing uncontrollably in the passenger seat. Hubby, can we please never go back there? I let out a cold, mocking chuckle. Sure we can. The moment we finalize the divorce, you're free to flee this city entirely. Go somewhere where nobody knows your face. Then you won't have to face any of this shame. You might even manage to live a decent life. I threw those words out strategically, to test Liu Li's resolve. I needed to see if she actually had the guts to run. If she truly intended to vanish, I would have to overhaul my entire plan. Liu Li wavered for a split second, looking stirred, but the light in her eyes quickly died out. She couldn't do it. She lacked the raw courage to start over. She was terrified that if she just walked away, she would literally end up killing her father with rage. She simply couldn't shoulder the weight of that consequence. Besides, what kind of daughter commits a sin, only to force her parents to suffer the fallout? Liu Li wasn't capable of being that heartless. As for the divorce, ending the marriage would leave her a social pariah, while I would continue to thrive and live my best life, only by clinging to this marriage. Could she hope to eventually face the world again? Hubby, please, don't divorce me. I can endure all of this. Just give me one last chance, Liu Li pleaded desperately. I felt a wave of internal relief. It seemed she didn't have the resolve to cut and run. As long as she remains trapped in the city, I have a million ways to make her life a living hell. The atmosphere inside the car turned suffocatingly silent because I refused to answer. Only Liu Li's pathetic sobbing echoed in the space. I actually relished the sound. I loved watching her crumble. The more violently she wept, the more invigorated I felt. Upon arriving back at the residential complex, I had just barely parked the car when I heard a voice call out, Xiaoqin, come here. I need to talk to you about something. Auntie Wang said, Is something the matter? I walked over with slow, deliberate steps. So, Xiaoqin, when exactly are you finalizing that divorce? The moment you're free, Auntie has the perfect girl to introduce to you. Don't you worry. The girl I have in mind for you has a character 10 times stronger than some people. Auntie Wang projected her voice loudly. I put on an awkward, conflicted expression, but my peripheral vision was locked on Liu Li. I wanted to savor every detail of her reaction. Liu Li wasn't standing far away at all, so every word Auntie Wang barked pierced her ears with agonizing clarity. She was seething with hidden fury, biting her lip until it nearly bled. I was her only lifeline now. There was no way she'd let anyone snatch me away. Simultaneously, a sharp sense of crisis flared within her. I'm a high-value man. That fact is absolutely indisputable. She realized she currently has no leverage to keep such a man, and pure unadulterated panic set in. She had to make her presence felt. Liu Li approached tentatively, standing silently behind me to assert her claim. Yet she lacked the audacity to interject. She knew that the moment she opened her mouth, a screaming match with Auntie Wang was inevitable. She was terrified. Her standing in my heart would plummet further. Her status was already hanging by a thread. If single public spat caused it to snap entirely, she would be utterly devastated. I cast a sideways glance at Liu Li before speaking. Auntie Wang, this is a private family matter, so please don't trouble yourself over it. Wait, you're not planning to divorce her. Your wife committed such a scandalous act. Are you seriously just going to swallow your pride? Auntie Wang glared directly at Liu Li, speaking with brutal, unfiltered honesty. Liu Li bit her lip until it bled, but she didn't dare utter a single syllable in protest. My expression darkened instantly. Auntie Wang, if there's nothing else, I'll be heading inside now. The moment I turned to leave, Auntie Wang lunged forward and grabbed my arm. Xiaoqin, listen, she insisted. You're only hesitating because you weren't there that night, so you haven't seen the visceral reality of it. But I was there. When the police raided your place, I was standing right by the door. I caught the whole sordid scene on camera. Let me show you exactly how your wife looked back then. Auntie Wang released my hand and began frantically scrolling through her phone for the clip. I watched as a swarm of gossiping neighbors began to encircle us. My face turned grim as I clamped my hand over Auntie Wang's wrist, my voice dropping to a low, dangerous rumble. Auntie Wang, could you please grant me a shred of dignity? Auntie Wang looked up, startled by my menacing expression, then glanced at the crowd of onlookers closing in. Realization dawned on her as she offered a clumsy apology. Oh, look at my scatterbrain, Xiaoqin. I'm so incredibly sorry. Let's catch up privately another time. I shook off her grip and turned away immediately. She seemed genuinely furious at this point. It's quite ironic, isn't it? She was the one who trashed her own reputation. Yet hearing the truth still makes her blood boil. Before following me, Liu Li shot a lethal glare at Auntie Wang as if to warn her to stop meddling in other people's business. That look instantly ignited Auntie Wang's temper. She pointed at Liu Li's retreating back and screamed, "You dare glare at me after what you did? What, you think you can ban people from talking about your filth? In the old days, a woman like you would have been dealt with long ago." Hearing Auntie Wang's venomous shouting, I quickened my pace. Once back inside the apartment, I sprawled on the sofa and sparked a cigarette. My mind was unnervingly calm. Liu Li entered the house, and without even kicking off her shoes, she walked straight to me and sank to her knees. She kept her head bowed low, not uttering a single word, not even daring to breathe too loudly. She could sense that I was on the verge of exploding. Right now, any word from her might be the final spark. I exhaled a thick cloud of smoke and asked coldly, "What is the meaning of this?" "Hubby, I know I've brought utter shame upon you. I'm so incredibly sorry. Please just hit me." Liu Li gritted her teeth, speaking in a submissive, broken tone. "Do you have any idea how the neighbors have been looking at me every time I step out that door? I am a man, and I shouldn't have to endure this humiliation." I spoke with a voice dripping in pure, jagged sarcasm. Liu Li finally broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. She reached out to cling to my legs and wailed, I know everything. Hubby, I'm begging you for one more chance. I'll do anything to make up for this mistake." I looked down at her with eyes like ice, remaining silent. I stood up and walked straight into the bedroom, leaning back against the closed door. As I listened to Liu Li's pathetic wailing outside, a cold, ruthless smile spread across my face. Later that afternoon, I stepped out of the room. I saw Liu Li still kneeling in the exact same spot. A flicker of imperceptible mockery flashed in my eyes. The playing the victim act. It used to work like a charm on me. I used to fall for this pathetic trap every time. But now all she gets is a cold sneer. Liu Li looked up at me with raw, bloodshot eyes, brimming with a faint, desperate spark of hope. She was practically begging for a shred of my old concern. I walked over to her trembling figure and looked down at her coldly. "Go cook. I'm starving." I spoke my piece and sat directly on the sofa. I didn't offer a hand to help her up, nor did I waste another syllable on her. Disappointment washed over Liu Li's face. Yet she refused to let her spirit break just yet. Anger is temporary, she told herself. She truly believed I'd eventually cave and forgive her. She struggled to haul herself off the floor, but her knees screamed in agony from the prolonged kneeling. Her balance failed and she collapsed. She ended up falling right against me. Loli frantically stammered out apologies, while desperately trying to regain her footing. But the searing pain in her joints was too much. She was physically unable to stand. I indifferently shoved her onto the cushions, refraining from scolding her, or even rushing her to get up. I simply grabbed the remote and flicked on the TV. Luli bit her lip until it turned white, feeling utterly dejected. A wave of bone-chilling indifference swept over her. A few minutes passed in silence. I stepped back into the bedroom, emerging with a bottle of medicine for her. I tossed it over and said, "Patch yourself up. Once the pain subsides, get in the kitchen and start dinner." Liuli's eyes lit up with sudden radiant joy. Clutching the bottle, she stared at me intently. She felt that familiar glimmer of hope returning. I laughed internally with pure malice. Don't get too excited. This tiny scrap of hope will be the fuel for your future suffering. Liuli stole a cautious glance at me, before gingerly rolling up her pant legs. As she applied the ointment, she kept tracking me with the corner of her eye. She was scanning for any reaction as I looked at her legs, knowing full well they were her most seductive feature. She believed that if she could just tempt me once, most of the resentment in my heart would simply vanish. I knew exactly what kind of game she was playing. She actually thought she could lure me back into her bed with a little skin, as if. The mere sight of her body now makes my stomach churn. I stood up and strode back into the bedroom, grabbed a pair of baggy loose-fitting pants, and hurled them directly at her. With a completely stoic expression, I commanded, "Cover yourself up and get to the kitchen." A flash of crushing disappointment crossed her face. She realized breaking me wouldn't be that simple. After all, it had only been a few days. Nobody could erase such a vivid betrayal that quickly. Still, Liuli's mind was already churning with a new plan. While she was busy occupied in the kitchen, I pulled out my phone to hunt for a new job. I had no intention of relying on her money forever. I scrolled through dozens of job listings, but nothing seemed to catch my eye. Most were even worse than the position I just left. But going back to my old boss was out of the question. So regardless of the quality, I would eventually have to settle for something. Once dinner was over, I slipped out of the apartment. I headed to a park just a short walk from the complex and sank onto a secluded wooden bench. Staring up at the bright full moon, I felt adrift. To be honest, I still couldn't wrap my head around how my entire world could have suffered such a catastrophic and violent upheaval in such a short time. Liu Li was a jagged scar on my soul. Why did you have to do it? I whispered. You knew exactly who you were. Yet you chose to drag me into your mess. My life was supposed to be heading towards something better. But now because of her, I've stepped into the abyss. You deserve to rot. A low venomous mutter escaped my lips. In my entire life, I have never felt a hatred this pure. Not even toward the parents who abandoned me. They didn't even come close to this level of loathing. And I will never forget. I pulled out another cigarette and sparked it. Beneath the hazy looming shroud of the night, only the glowing cherry of my cigarette pierced the dark. Suddenly, a sharp ringtone shattered the midnight silence. Hello. The voice on the other end wavered with hesitation, laced with a cautious, fearful undertone as he spoke. Brother Feng, I stumbled across a video today. It's about I cut him off before he could finish. Old Chen don't bother testing the waters with me. The sucker featured in that viral video is exactly who you think it is, Chen Hai, my ride or die since childhood. We practically grew up like two sides of the same coin. This can't be real, right? Chen Hai still struggled to process the bombshell. He couldn't believe I was the one being played. Hard to wrap your head around, isn't it? Trust me, I wish it were a sick joke too. But unfortunately, it's the cold hard truth. I've basically been crowned the king of cuckolds. The line went dead silent for a long moment before he spoke. Brother Feng, what's your next move? Are you getting a divorce? Divorce is out of the question. Chen Hai, you know exactly what kind of man I am. When have I ever just swallowed a humiliation like this? Chen Hai frantically tried to talk me down. Feng, listen to me. You need to keep a level head, man. Don't go doing anything reckless. A woman like that isn't worth throwing your life away for. Relax. If I were going to get blood on my hands, I wouldn't be picking up this phone right now. In a civilized society, violence isn't the solution. After the words left my mouth, I hesitated for a fleeting second before continuing. Chen Hai, how are things going at that factory in Shanghai? Is the work treating you all right? Man, I'm nowhere near your level, Brother Feng. Grinding my soul away for a measly 6,000 a month. It's barely enough to keep the hunger at bay. Chen Hai, I'm telling you as a brother, you're 23. Stop rotting away in that factory graveyard. It's a dead end. I urged him. Chen Hai was my ride or die brother, and I genuinely couldn't stand seeing him waste his life in a daze. I know it's a dead end job, but I don't have your brains, Brother Feng. I still don't get it though. We both spent our time goofing off back then. So how were your grades always so damn high? Chen Hai joked, trying to lighten the mood. Deep down, he knew exactly why. While he was busy napping or reading web novels in class, I was actually grinding and soaking up every word. Brother, go learn a real trade. Later, once your Brother Feng hits the jackpot. I'll personally drag you out of that misery. All right, I'll be waiting for that day, waiting for you to come to my rescue. We talked for hours after that. For the first time since Liu Li's betrayal, I felt a genuine sense of solace. A brother won't always be by your side like a woman, but the moment you're in deep trouble, they're the ones who step up to back you up. That's what a real brotherhood is. Brother Feng, how long has it been since you went home? Chen Hai asked, his voice tinged with unease. And the old man, is he still doing okay? I froze for a second. It had been over a year since I'd last visited. I had no clue how the old director's health was faring. I vaguely remembered that back during my wedding. He still seemed quite robust and full of life. Chen Hai realized my silence meant that I hadn't been back either, so he spoke up again. Brother Feng, go back and visit when you can, and give him my regards while you're at it. I hung up the phone, igniting another cigarette. My eyes were clouded with a deep, heavy melancholy. After crushing the cigarette butt, I stood up and began the slow trek back home. As for the neighbors' constant whispering and pointing, I didn't give a damn about their judgmental glares. Let them talk. My life was already in shambles anyway. Liu Li's days are bound to be even more agonizing. She probably wishes she could just rot at home forever. Suddenly, a middle-aged man approached and clapped my shoulder, muttering, "Keep your head up, brother. This is just the way the world works nowadays. If you can stomach it, stay. If not, just cut her loose and walk away. To hell with the local gossip. It's your life, not theirs. Their wagging tongues won't cost you a pound of flesh." I looked at this man vaguely familiar but nameless and replied, "Listen, big brother. I truly appreciate the concern. I know exactly what I need to do. Actually, you could try looking at it from another angle. Once the initial impulse fades, all that's left is a mess. But if you take a step back, you might find a different kind of leverage." I let a twisted, eerie smile crawl across my face. It seemed this guy had some dark history of his own. Then it clicked. I remembered who he was. When his wife betrayed him, he blocked the door and summoned every single one of her relatives to witness the shame. He squeezed his father-in-law dry, demanding a brand new $30,000 car, before he finally agreed to let the matter drop. Now his word is absolute law in that house. He rules with an iron fist. His wife doesn't dare breathe a word against him. Your method wouldn't work for me, brother. My wife's family doesn't have a cent to their name. But don't worry, I have my own plans. Regardless, thanks for looking out for me. The moment I stepped through the door, Liu Li swarmed me with pathetic over-the-top service. "Hubby, please have some tea. I've readied the bath. The water temperature is dialed in perfectly. You can wash up whenever you're ready." I accepted the cup, casting a cold glance over Liu Li. To be perfectly honest, this submissive servant-like attitude of hers felt a bit jarring at first, but I can't deny that it felt satisfying. If she's so eager to play the role of the maid, who am I to refuse her the pleasure? After a slow sip of my tea, I stood up and strolled toward the bathroom. Liu Li followed closely behind, but I slammed the door right in her face. Staring at the glass door that nearly crushed her nose, Liu Li's lips twitched with suppressed irritation, and she began cursing me out in her head. Didn't she just make one tiny little mistake? Was it really necessary to give her the cold shoulder like this? After shaking her fist in a silent fit of rage, she turned to the bedroom to arrange the bedding. If this tactic failed to work, she had another ace up her sleeve. After a quick, indifferent shower, I stepped into the bedroom. Without granting Liu Li even a fleeting glance, I climbed straight into bed and turned my back to her, ready for sleep. Liu Li was draped in a modest, yet incredibly provocative nightgown. It was a piece she had meticulously selected. It didn't reveal too much skin, but it perfectly accentuated her curves. She was still hell-bent on seducing me, but her scheme crashed and burned. I didn't acknowledge her existence for a single second. Feeling dejected, she crawled into bed. Staring intensely at my broad back, she opened her mouth to speak, but the words died in her throat. As Liu Li contemplated the nightmare her life had become, a wave of bitterness washed over her soul. As for her internal drama, I neither knew nor cared to find out. My soft snoring already echoed through the room. The next morning, I woke up feeling a strange weight on my body. Opening my eyes, I realized Liu Li was coiled around me like a slithering snake, and she was completely stark naked, as a man in his prime with blood pumping through his veins. Fueled by that inevitable morning surge, my body began to react instinctively. Liu Li's physique was undeniably stunning, and her skin was flawlessly pale. Yet all I felt was a surging wave of revulsion. I violently shoved her body away, threw on my clothes in a flash, and sparked a cigarette as I headed to the living room. Liu Li had stirred the moment I moved. She had held on to a flicker of hope that I'd succumb, but with my cold, decisive rejection, her expectations were utterly shattered. He genuinely despises me. He thinks I'm filthy. Liu Li's confidence in winning me back was crumbling. If he could ignore her even under these intimate circumstances, she truly had no faith left that he'd ever grant her forgiveness. "I know you're awake. Get up and make breakfast. I'm heading out in a bit." My cold voice echoed from the living room. Liu Li rose with a complex pained expression and threw on her clothes. As she passed through the living room, she stole a glance at me and asked timidly, "Hubby, Where are you headed today? I'm visiting the orphanage. You're staying here alone. I looked up at her with eyes like daggers, issuing a chilling warning. While I'm out, you'd better stay in line. Luli's head shook like a rattle as she frantically promised. Hubby, I'll be on my absolute best behavior. I'll never bring shame to your name again. Good, because if I catch you messing around behind my back again, you won't even have the luxury of a divorce. Luli's face turned deathly pale. She understood the underlying malice in my words. This wasn't just a simple warning. It was a terrifying threat. Luli gritted her teeth, her body trembling slightly. She didn't dare utter a syllable, let alone offer a rebuttal. Under my suffocating gaze, Luli scurried into the kitchen. Like a frightened stray kitten, fear had finally taken root in her heart. She didn't know if I'd actually follow through, but she definitely wasn't brave enough to gamble on it. The moment she disappeared into the kitchen, I finally averted my gaze, recalling Luli's submissive attitude from yesterday. I pulled out my phone and ordered an outfit online. It was a costume that would fit her current role perfectly. After finishing breakfast, I drove to the mall and loaded up the car. I handpicked a mountain of supplies before cruising at a leisurely pace toward the place where my life began, the Blue Mountain Orphanage. This sanctuary had been standing for nearly 40 years. In my earliest memories, it evolved from those initial wooden shacks to brick structures, and finally into the concrete buildings standing today, consistently improving as the years rolled by. I can still vividly recall meeting the director for the first time. Back then, she was a tall, slender youth. Well, I'm not sure if youth is the right word, but the director certainly looked incredibly vibrant and young back then. Over 20 years have vanished in the blink of an eye. I remember during our last encounter, her hair had already begun to surrender to streaks of silver, though a dense web of wrinkles guarded her eyes. Her smile remained the most comforting thing I'd ever known. After several years of silence, I wonder how the elderly director is holding up. I wonder if she'll curse me out for being an ungrateful brat, considering I haven't set foot in this place for such an eternity. After a grueling 3-hour drive, I finally pulled up to the outskirts where Blue Mountain Orphanage sits. I hopped out, hauling bags of supplies, walking inside with a heart heavy with nervous anticipation. Some of the older kids recognized me almost instantly, shouting, "Brother Fung is back! Grandpa Director, Brother Fung has returned." I scanned the crowd, looking at the children surrounding me. There were so many unfamiliar fresh faces mixed in now. I couldn't help but feel a wave of profound melancholy. What does it actually take for a child to end up as an orphan? I handed the small gifts I'd brought over to the older kids, letting them handle the distribution, while I carried the rest toward the director's office. I'd barely reached the stairs when I saw the old director coming to meet me. I rushed forward with a sheepish grin and said, "Director, what are you doing out here? I'm certainly not important enough for a royal welcome." The old director pulled a stern face and barked, "You little rascal, so you actually remembered how to find your way back. I figured you'd struck it rich and erase this orphanage from your memory entirely." I scrambled to offer my apologies. "Director, it's my fault completely on me. I've been running myself ragged chasing money these last few years, neglecting to come home and visit you. It was a massive oversight on my part." The old director looked over my shoulder, searching left and right, her brow furrowing as she asked, "Why are you the only one who returned, coming home without even bringing your wife along?" This was a sacred tradition of the orphanage. Any child who had tied the knot was required to bring their partner back for every visit. The director always took a commemorative photo to keep. I scratched my head, feeling a wave of awkwardness. I had no desire to burden the elderly director with my toxic mess, so I fabricated a quick excuse. Luli has some family emergencies, so she had to head back to her hometown to help out. The director's piercing sharp gaze locked onto me. She sensed that the radiant light I once carried had flickered out. It was as if a faint, suffocating dark mist was swirling around me. "Xiao Kun, you've been our most brilliant success since we opened. I truly don't want to see you stray down some dark path. Do you understand me?" Under the director's scrutiny, I felt a slight twitch of unease. Yet that look of genuine concern filled my hollow heart. But some burdens are destined to be carried in absolute silence. So I pulled a carton of premium cigarettes from my bag and pressed them into the director's hands, attempting to dodge the topic. I said, "Director, I brought you some top-shelf smokes, and I even picked out a brand new outfit for you. I wasn't entirely certain about your exact size, so I just went with my gut and best memory. Come on, let's try it on and see if it fits." With that, I gently steered her back into the office. The director donned the clothes I had purchased for her, though she didn't voice her approval. The radiant beam on her face proved she was thrilled. "Xiao Qin, don't waste your money like this next time. Earning a living is a brutal grind, you know. Ha, what's the point of money if you don't spend it? Out with the old, in with the new." I replied, waving off her concerns with nonchalance. The director's tone suddenly shifted to a more serious note. "I heard that Chen Hai got himself into some deep trouble in Shanghai." "Trouble?" I looked at the director completely blindsided. How come I haven't heard a single word about this? That brat hasn't set foot back here in years, but I've kept a very close eye on his antics. Out of all of you, he's always been the biggest magnet for chaos. Word reached me not too long ago that the boy got into a brawl and beat someone up. He ended up rotting in a detention cell for several days. Supposedly, he had to cough up tens of thousands in damages. I bet every cent he saved over the years is gone now. That boy is truly something else, always reacting with such reckless aggression. He never learned the art of restraint. The director lamented, her voice dripping with anguish. I stood there completely blindsided by the news. I honestly had zero clue this had happened. I'll definitely have to grill Chen-hai over the phone later. I can't believe the bastard kept this hidden from me. That's not how a real brother is supposed to act. Director, please don't lose sleep over it. If he didn't call me begging for a rescue, then it probably wasn't a life or death situation. I offered, trying to soothe her nerves. I truly hope he's alright. But no matter what, Vic, he's still the child I raised with my own hands. The director let out a heavy, weary sigh, her tone laced with an unshakable sense of dread. I spent a while longer keeping the director company, then headed outside to play with my younger siblings. Shortly after we finished our midday meal, I sought out the director to bid my farewell. She looked at me lost in thought for a moment, before pulling me back into the privacy of her office. Xiaoqin, you've grown into a man now. I think it's finally time I handed this over to you. Confusion flickered through my mind, and a sudden sharp suspicion began to take root. I remained silent, however, waiting for the director to reveal her secret. She retrieved a pristine, well-kept box from the shelf, pulling out a single letter and handing it to me. When I first found you all those years ago, this was tucked away inside your pocket. Go ahead, read it. I accepted the envelope with steady hands and unfolded the paper, greeting stranger. I am the mother of this child. Due to circumstances beyond my control, I am forced to abandon my own son. My heart is being torn into 1,000 pieces, but I beg of you to treat this child with kindness. If fate ever allows me to find him again, I promise a reward beyond your wildest dreams. My face remained a mask of cold indifference. The moment I saw that envelope, I already knew exactly what it contained. Abandoned. Honestly, it's not even worth shedding a tear over. After all, I've survived this long on my own. Why bother obsessing over things that can't be changed? Xiaoqin, please don't let this consume you. I truly believe your mother had her reasons back then. No mother would ever willingly abandon her own flesh and blood. The director spoke, her voice filled with gentle comfort. I let out a long, heavy exhale. After tucking the letter away securely, I replied, Director, I'm not upset at all. The very concept of parents has never existed in my world. The director froze for a split second, but understanding quickly washed over her expression. When she first found me, I was just a few years old. It was impossible for me to have any memory of them. The director pushed the small box toward me on the desk. Take these items with you as well. They were all on your person the day I found you. I accepted the box, rising to bid her farewell. Director, I'll be taking my leave now. I'll come back to visit you again soon. If your schedule is too packed, don't feel forced to make the trip. As long as you keep this place in your heart, that's enough. The director said, waving her hand dismissively, gazing at the director's silver hair. A sharp pang of sorrow pierced my chest. She had grown so frail, she was truly getting old. Time is a terrifying, relentless monster. It silently erodes the youth and vitality of everyone it touches. I vowed then and there to return more frequently. I feared that if the day came when she passed, I might lose the memory of her face forever. By the way, I think the director's surname is Zhang. I've only ever addressed her by her title, and I realized I couldn't even recall her full name. A wave of shame washed over me at the thought. Still, I wouldn't dare ask her to her face now. I planned to look up the orphanage's records online later. Her name would definitely be listed there. After saying my goodbyes, I stepped out of the office. As I crossed the playground, a sudden shout reached my ears. Brother Feng, are you leaving us already? I turned back with a faint knowing smile. Wang Dong, what you thinking about tagging along with me? You bet I am. The moment the words left his lips, Wang Dong's eyes dimmed with a flicker of melancholy. But I'm still stuck in school for now, yo. Once I graduate, I'm coming straight for you. Just focus on your studies. And don't turn out like that brat Chen-hai. I chuckled, giving his shoulder a firm, encouraging pat. As I spoke, back in the car, I tossed the mysterious box onto the passenger seat with indifference. I pulled out my phone and quickly Googled Blue Mountain Orphanage. Sure enough, the director's full profile popped up. Her real name was Zhang Yousheng. I burned that name into the depths of my memory. She was the one person I owed everything to, and I would cherish that name until my dying breath. Having found the information I needed, I pocketed my phone and reached for the box, but my hand froze halfway through the motion. I let out a self-deprecating, bitter laugh. It's pointless now. Withdrawing my hand, I grabbed my phone once again to dial my ride-or-die Chen-hai. The call connected almost instantly, and Chen-hai's loud, boisterous voice boomed through the speaker. Brother Feng, what's the move? Hearing the roar of the wind whistling on his end, I knitted my brows in disapproval. You idiot, are you taking calls while riding? Got a death wish or something? Find a spot to pull over now. After a minute of silence, Chen Hai's voice returned. All right. Brother Feng. What's up? I've got a stack of interviews lined up today. I cut straight to the chase and demanded. I heard you got into a brawl and spent time in a cell. Supposedly you coughed up tens of thousands in damages. Is that the truth? Don't you dare lie to me. Where on earth did you hear such a wild story? Total fake news. Never happened. Chen Hai denied it flatly. Oh, so you're saying the director is a liar? Wait, how the hell did the director find out? Chen Hai blurted out in a panic, accidentally confirming the lie. Chen Hai, it's crystal clear you don't actually consider me a brother. Stop calling me Brother Feng from now on. I don't need a brother who keeps such a massive crisis hidden away from me like a stranger. I lashed out, berating him without mercy. I was just so damn ashamed. That's why I couldn't bring myself to tell you. Chen Hai muttered, his voice weak and defeated. Who did you hospitalize? Just a foreman back at the factory where I used to grind. Why did that lowlife try to bully you? Brother Feng, the whole story is just pathetic. Please, just drop it. Was it over a woman? Chen Hai remained dead silent, which was as good as a confession. I snapped in frustration. That is incredibly humiliating. Have you completely forgotten everything I taught you? Using your fist is the most garbage way to solve a problem. It's the most expensive and least effective move you can make. You really haven't listened to a single word I've said, have you? But he was literally hitting on my girl right in front of me. Damn it all. I had to break his face. The bastard was practically begging for a beatdown. And I suppose you feel like a big man now that you've hit him. I feel fantastic. Sure, I had to cough up 20 grand. But you can't put a price tag on that kind of satisfaction. Was it worth it? Logically, probably not. But it made me feel alive again. So in my book, it was worth every cent. I let out a heavy sigh and asked, how's the job hunt coming along? I didn't bother offering any hollow platitudes. Chen Hai wasn't the type to crave pity. If he ever truly hit rock bottom, I wouldn't need an invitation. I'd step in and pull him out myself. It's been a total bust so far. Nothing has panned out yet, but it's whatever. I'm actually using the downtime to clear my head and recharge. Chen Hai replied with a nonchalant shrug in his voice. I could sense a genuine lightness in his tone. It seemed he really was holding it together. After a moment of reflection, I opened my mouth and said, Chen Hai, since you're currently fun employed, how about coming back to grind with me? I'm planning to launch my own business. Chen Hai asked, his interest clearly piqued. Brother Feng, what kind of hustle are we talking about? I'm going to start a labor services agency. I've built up a solid network over the years, so this path should keep us well fed. Deal. Say no more. I'm packing my bags right now. I'll catch the first flight out tonight. After cutting the call, I sparked another cigarette. The nicotine kickstarted my brain into overdrive. Now this wasn't just about making Liu Li pay. It was about stacking paper while I exacted my revenge. That's the only way to ensure a superior life once the dust settles. I didn't drive back to the apartment. Instead, I pulled up to a local bar. Technically, I'm supposed to be a man betrayed by his wife, suffering and needing a place to drown his sorrows. At the very least, I had to keep up appearances. I grabbed a booth and ordered a glass of the hard stuff, sitting in solitude nursing my drink slowly. The lights were dim, and the DJ was loud. The crowd was sparse. But only because the nightly peak hadn't hit yet. Girls, do you see that? There's a total hottie over there drinking alone. Wow, his whole vibe is top tier. Definitely doesn't look like some average blue-collar guy. A woman with a clean, innocent look, who was actually quite stunning, whispered eagerly to her friends. He is handsome, and he looks to be right around our age. Hey, Shiyu, are you going to make a move or what? One of the women glanced my way and teased the girl who had spoken first. Royale, you're so annoying. I was nice enough to point out a 10 out of 10 guy, and you're already making fun of me. Next time, I'm keeping the eye candy to myself. The Shiyu pouted, feigning genuine offense. Exactly, Shiyu, just ignore this thirsty woman. Don't tell her next time we spot a catch. We'll just keep the view for ourselves. Senior Chin is always the sensible one. Alright, settle down. The two of you need to stop acting up. So what's the consensus on that hunk? Anyone brave enough to try their luck? Royale provocatively licked her lips as she threw out the challenge. Royale, keep your thirst in check. Shiyu spotted him first, so she gets the first shot. And if she passes, I'm next in line, not you. Kinesue grabbed Shiyu's arm, forming a united front as she spoke. Since when? I've got eyes too, you know, if he's in my line of sight. He's fair game for me too. Royale shot back, pouting her thin lips in protest. You've got some nerve. Remember the last guy I found? You went over and scared him off in 2 seconds flat. I didn't even get a chance to ask for his socials. How is that my fault? That dude had a decent face, sure, but zero personality to match. I was basically staging an intervention for you. Shiyu, caught in the middle, was getting a headache, so she slammed her hand down and made a call. Well, you two quit bickering over nothing. I'll go over and snag his WeChat myself. After that, you two can fight over him however you want. That's exactly what we wanted to hear. Go get him, Shiyu. We'll be waiting here for your victory report. The two, who were just on the verge of a catfight, instantly beamed with mischievous grins. Li Shiyu stood there completely dazed. She might be a bit airheaded at times, but even she realized she'd been totally played. Seriously, girls. Is this how we're doing things now? Besties are for supporting, not for selling out. Xiu, what are you still standing there for? If you come back without that hottie's contact info, you're picking up the entire tab tonight. Royale teased, giving Li Xiu a light shove. Li Xiu wandered toward me in a complete fog. Kinsuya suddenly yanked her back and hissed, "Wait, Xiu. You're going over there empty-handed. He'll think you're just a low-tier gold digger looking for a freebie. Take your drink with you." With a smirk, Qinshui thrust the cocktail into Li Xiu's trembling hands, giving her an enthusiastic go-get-em-chiao gesture. "Sister Qinshui, can we just call it off? I'm way too shy for this." Li Xiu hesitated, her feet glued to the floor. She was genuinely dreading the approach. "Shy, my foot. Move it already, or Royale and I will make you regret it tonight." Kinju gave Li Xiu's backside a playful swat, shoving her forward toward the target. Helpless Li Xiu realized she was no match for their combined pressure, forced into it. "Also, don't drink too much, it's bad for your health." My hand froze as I was lifting my glass. I looked up at Li Xiu's retreating figure. Was that actual concern from a total stranger? How could such a simple cliché sentence manage to flicker a spark of warmth in my hollow chest? "Well, Xiu, give us the tea." "Did you score his number?" Kinisua asked, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. "You total fangirl. You're already loaded with cash. Yet you're still competing with me for hotties in a dive bar like this. I'm telling you right now, this one is mine. Hands off." Royale suddenly lunged at Qinshui, clapping a hand over her mouth. "Why are you even bothering to claim him? All those guys in your contacts are just gathering digital dust. As if you're any different. Go ahead, check your own phone and see who's there. When was the last time you actually sent a text?" "I'm just curating my options." "Curating a graveyard more like?" "Enough, stop fighting." "I didn't get his info," Li Xiu blurted out in a panic. She was terrified these two would actually start a legit feud. Both girls pivoted instantly, their eyes locking onto Li Xiu. They gasped in unison. "You didn't get it. Xiu, are you retiring from the game or what?" "That guy, he's on a different wavelength. He's got something heavy on his mind. It feels like a deep, fresh heartbreak. We really should just leave him in peace." "Broken heart, that's perfect. I'm exactly the remedy he needs to heal," Royale declared, volunteering for the front lines. Regarding Royale's bold claim, Li Xiu merely offered a subtle knowing smirk. She knew Royale was just playing around as usual. Both of them were chronic jokers. All bark and no bite, yet they'd pushed her toward me. Li Xiu glanced back at her two best friends, who were aggressively flashing her fighting gestures. As Li Xiu came to a halt right beside me, I naturally sensed her presence immediately. However, I didn't bother to acknowledge her. Taking a deep, steadying breath, Li Xiu lightly rapped her knuckles on my table. "Hey, handsome," she ventured. "Mind if I join you for a drink?" I looked up at her with a faint, mocking grin. "Anywhere in this booth is fine, as long as it's not on my lap." A spark of surprise flickered in Li Xiu's eyes. Up close, he was even more striking than she'd thought. The more she stared, the more a subtle heat began to flush her cheeks. Once Li Xiu started talking, she found her rhythm. She carried herself with an effortless, elegant grace. Her voice was pure yet laced with a hint of allure, but I gave her zero special attention. Nothing she did could possibly sway me right now. Besides, I wasn't in the mood for games. "The name's Li Xiu. What about you? How should I address you? I notice you're over here drowning your sorrows alone. Is there something heavy weighing on your mind? If you're looking to vent, I'm all ears. You can tell me anything." Li Xiu raised her glass in a toast and spoke. I locked eyes with her, staring her down, for 30 cold seconds before finally speaking. "Are you married?" "Married," Li Xiu blurted out, stunned, before answering as if it were the most obvious thing. "Please, I'm fresh out of college. Who gets hitched that early these days? Don't you know marriage makes women age in dog years?" I simply shook my head and replied, "Since you've never walked down that aisle, you'll never truly grasp what I'm going through. Talking to you would be a waste of breath." Li Xiu stared at me in absolute shock. She was genuinely stunned. It never crossed her mind that this guy, clearly her peer, was already hitched. Seriously, why the rush to tie the knot? But the moment she realized he was a married man, Li Xiu's romantic interest evaporated instantly. The difference between married and single might be just a word, but that word was a massive moral boundary. Li Xiu had zero intention of sparking a domestic disaster. "So that miserable look on your face? Is it because of money?" "I don't have much myself, but I've managed to save about 100 grand. I paused in shock before muttering, "Maybe money is part of it. My funds are just too pitiful. I can't gain a foothold in this greed-driven society." Li Xiu didn't quite grasp the depth of it, but she could hear the profound sorrow laced in my voice. She tried to offer some comfort. "That's still a lot of cash, if you think that's not enough. Should the rest of us just go jump off a bridge? I've worked for a year and barely saved 10,000. Look, you're still young. Money can be earned slowly over time. Right now, you should be soaking up the joys of youth." I continued to down my drink one gulp after another, responding with the weary cynicism of a dying old man. Li Xiu knitted her brows in annoyance. She was starting to lose patience with this guy. He was clearly a young man just like her. So why was he acting like some ancient philosopher? She shot back with a bit of a sting. Wow, you seem to think you've seen it all, huh? Do you even have kids? Have you actually faced life, death, or chronic illness? You don't understand. Sometimes age isn't about the number on your ID. Maybe it's a single event, or perhaps just a fleeting moment, where you suddenly realize your soul has withered. Li Xiu glared at me with visible irritation. She didn't come here to listen to some preachy, depressing lecture. She came here to make a connection. But it was now clear he wasn't friend material. What a total buzzkill of a man. Fine, keep wallowing in your deep thoughts. Clearly, we are on totally different wavelengths. So I'll leave you to your misery. Li Xiu stood up and declared, "Sorry for the intrusion. This round is on me." After a brief pause, Li Xiu offered one last piece of advice. Whatever hell you're going through right now, I just want to say one thing. Life is far too beautiful to let yourself be locked away in a prison of your own making.